New Jersey keeps breaking the rules. Prices are high, taxes are higher, and yet the lines of buyers keep forming. Start with the simple math. Across the state, the median sales price rose by 5.4% last year to $525,000. That's not a niche pocket. That's across all property types, in a state where property taxes and home values already rank among the steepest in the country. And the momentum didn't wither at the calendar change. Data released in January showed demand held steady into 2025, even as would-be sellers sat tight. One reason is locked inside their mortgage statements. The average interest rate on existing loans hovers around 4%, while new loans climbed as high as 7.8%. That gap stranded thousands in place, even people ready to move, turning the home they live in into the anchor that keeps inventory from drifting back onto the market. Yet when homes do come up for sale, New Jersey's geography does its pull. Wedged between New York City and Philadelphia, a 45-minute train ride can move someone from suburban quiet to center city lights, and that proximity keeps buyers circling. From Camden to Cherry Hill, Trenton to the Jersey Shore, demand found a way through the turbulence. In 2005, many people who had hit pause walked back onto the field as mortgage rates edged down from their peak. The result was a strange equilibrium: thinner listings, higher prices, and still more people trying to get in. Zoom in, and the numbers sharpen. Take Secaucus in Hudson County, where January closings tell the story in ink and signatures. On January 7th, a single-family home of 1,887 square feet closed for $1,120,000. One day later, another property hit the same $1,120,000 mark, but this one carried 7 bedrooms under one roof. By mid-month, on January 14th, a Humboldt Street home with 2,351 square feet went for $850,000. Then January 12th stacked a waterfront luxury condominium at $970,000, a price brushing the $1 million line. The pattern didn't end there. On January 29th, a classic single family sold for $825,000, and on January 30th, a townhome closed at $800,000. Even the entry lane showed pressure. At 74 Harbor Key in the Harmon Cove townhouses, a condominium still closed at $535,000 on January 9th. 1 month. 7 closings. The lowest rung started above $500,000, and the upper tier doubled it. That's the micro. The macro picture across town lines is even starker. Over the 12 months ending in January 2026, places at the top of the price growth tables posted gains that read like extra salary lines on a spreadsheet. In Deal, in Monmouth County, the typical home value reached $4,212,865, up by $412,280 in 1 year. Alpine in Bergen County climbed to $2,955,120, a 1-year increase of $320, $1,208, good for a 12.2% jump. Bayhead in Ocean County reached $2,362,175, with a 1-year rise of $240,903, a move of 11.4%. Lock Arbor tightened supply at the shore with a typical value of $2,880,432, up $231,775 in a single year. Saddle River checked in at $2,210,648, a gain of $226,124, up 11.4%. And Seagirt put exclamation points on the coast with $2,304,930 and a 12-month ad of $211,955, a 10.1% rise. Not every surge belongs to oceanfront mansions. In Franklin Lakes, the typical home value hit $1,517,266, jumping $157,124 in 1 year, an 11.6% gain. Summit ran the hill with $1,299,787 and a 12-month increase of $117,400 $579, up 9.9%. Spring Lake rose to $1,355,039, adding $130,201, a 10.6% climb. Even inland enclaves like Demarest went to $1,411,184, with a $180,632, 14.7% rise. Short Hills crossed higher at $2,258,188, adding $138,052 over 12 months, a lift of 6.5%. Those are not anomalies. They form a lattice. Stretch it 5 years, and the compounding shows. In Deal, the 5-year gain was $2,007,740, up 91.0%. In Allenhurst, 5 years stacked $1,127,742, a rise of 103.4%. In Long Beach Township, the 5-year increase measured $803,155, up 68.8%. So what set the stage? Start with a math problem that isn't new, but grew teeth. A supply-demand imbalance fed by the way New Jersey governs land and development. Home rule and exclusionary zoning add friction in the approvals pipeline and narrow where builders can build. A high regulatory environment stretches timelines and injects costs. Each extra month before a shovel hits the ground adds expense. Add property taxes near the top of national rankings, and carrying costs climb again. The consequence is uneven production. When new homes go up, they skew luxury, not starter. The market keeps minting high-end dwellings faster than attainable ones, and the entry-level rungs stay thin. On the demand side, mortgage math froze sellers in place. With an average existing rate near 4% and a peak for new loans at 7.8%, the move-up plan became self-defeating. Sell, and you trade your old monthly for a new one that can be hundreds or thousands more. Even people itching to move, downsizers, growing families, would-be relocators, chose to sit tight. The lock-in tightened inventory. Signals suggest that as rates drift lower, some of that frozen inventory could thaw. But there's another headwind: affordability. Advocates warn of a widening gap between what families earn and what even affordable homes cost. Credit-worthy buyers with down payment assistance sometimes still cannot clear the monthly threshold on homes they want to purchase. Subprime structures remain a risk. A loan that starts out feeling manageable can reset, spike payments, and pull a household toward foreclosure. Turn to the builders, and the pressures compound. Financing hurdles stacked up as borrowing costs rose. Developers describe projects stalled by higher costs of goods, higher interest, and longer waits to secure municipal approvals and financial agreements. Long-term tax abatements, tools that once bridged gaps to make difficult projects pencil, have largely disappeared, removing a lever that helped some deals cross the finish line. The divide widened by size. Skyscraper-scale developers, well-capitalized, can afford to wait. The small ones, the 5-unit, 10-unit, 12-unit players, are the ones unable to get projects off the ground. The same arithmetic shows up in affordable housing mandates. When it takes 5 market-rate units to offset the cost of 1 affordable unit, but municipalities resist the densities that math requires, projects stall. Requirements to disperse affordable units throughout a building can dictate design from the outset. Get that wrong, and an architect's drawings may not accommodate what the zoning ultimately demands. This is where New Jersey's duality shows. While deals stall in one column, other columns light up. Investors and developers have turned their eyes toward North Jersey's urban nodes and toward Jersey City in particular. Over the past year, Jersey City jumped 17 spots into the top tier of markets, drawing investment attention. North Jersey, as a region, climbed into 7th place. The draws are structural: a fast-growing commercial hub tethered to Manhattan by rails and river, cheaper rents than across the Hudson, and a talent pool that keeps replenishing. Between 2020 and 2024, Jersey City's population grew by 7.5%. Over the period from 22.2 to 22.105, firms in finance, insurance, and real estate, the FIRE sector, accounted for 63% of all leasing activity there. Parks matter too. The city holds 1,300 acres of parkland, a green ledger that tracks with quality of life metrics companies want to offer their people. But even the hottest niches have friction. Data centers are a case study. Nationwide, vacancy sits below 2%, and many facilities find tenants before the fiber is laid. Demand runs on the back of AI and cloud computing, but power limitations and supply hurdles throttle the expansion pipeline. In New Jersey, where space commands a premium and utility systems are already stretched, the question isn't whether demand exists, it's how to meet it without knocking residential bills upward. That calculus slows deals and leaves developers navigating power draw, water systems, and community pushback. Retail is undergoing its own metamorphosis. The old strip mall model, a triumph of 1975, doesn't hum in a world where DoorDash ferries dinner and online orders replenish closets. Across the state, developers and municipalities are rewriting the script. In Mount Arlington, a stalled project is being revived as a mixed-use center. Old retail spaces get a facelift to draw stronger tenants, and new residences bring life back after 6 p.m. In Flemington, the planning board unanimously approved preliminary and final major site plans and subdivision for the transformation of Liberty Village premium outlets into a mixed-use community. In Voorhees, the Township Committee signed a redevelopment agreement to revitalize the property long known as the Echelon Mall, now Voorhees Town Center. Similar rebirths are in motion at Monmouth Mall in Eatontown and Westfield Garden State Plaza in Paramus. Municipal logic is direct. Cooperate with reinvention, or watch a major rateable wither. Empty storefronts mean hollowed-out tax bases. Mixed-use, housing plus retail centers promise steady foot traffic and a better shot at long-term stability. They also offer a practical place to integrate affordable housing components within projects residents can embrace. Education is joining the script too. In Branchburg, a proposal envisions pairing Raritan Valley Community College with private development to build residential housing with a commercial component on the campus. The community college would lease back a portion for student dormitories, sidestepping direct capital expense, while the developer secures guaranteed renters and retail supported by the school. In that alignment, both sides reduce risk. It's a marriage of need and capital that pencils out better than some standalone plays. Healthcare has become a surprise character in this transformation. Across New Jersey, systems are investing heavily in ambulatory facilities that bring specialists and services into communities. Over the past 4 years, one major system opened health and wellness centers in Clifton, Paramus, Clark, and Eatontown, with a fifth coming to Metro Park Station in Woodbridge. It's the path of least resistance. Planning boards know what these centers mean for residents: shorter drives for treatment, anchors that don't empty out at night. In recent years, industrial warehousing had been the highest and best use in many corridors. Now, observers call healthcare the new warehouse, an asset class where it's easier to get funded, permitted, and built. In tough times, you build what clears the gate. And right now, clinics and wellness hubs carry less friction than loading docks or new office towers. Meanwhile, on the residential side, the heat is clearest in the places where the math still works for buyers. Take River Edge, where the typical home value sits at $811,599, up $69,621 in a year, 9.4% in 12 months. Or Westfield at $1,226,968, with a 12-month climb of $77,572, a 6.7% lift. Haworth posted a $106,944 one-year jump to $1 million, $139,860, a surge of 10.4%. Brielle stood at $1,219,273, up $95,106 in a year, an 8.5% rise. Chatham reached $1,266,015 after adding $101,726 over 12 months, an 8.7% gain. Even towns like South Orange, at $1,036,999, saw a one-year change of $77,944, up 8.1%. And in Allenhurst, beyond the 100% five-year climb, The one-year growth of $176,971 was still 8.7%. These are not just zip codes with storied names. They're towns where buyers will stack offers if the schools, commute, and street grid all play in tune. Add the shore, and the canvas brightens and complicates in equal measure. Long Beach Township counts a typical home at $1,970,933, up $82,236 in a year, and more than $800,000 over 5 years. Beach Haven sits at $1,633,544, with a 12-month rise of $78,198, or 5.0%. Barnegat Light reached $1,580,000, $1,993, after adding $72,838, up 4.8%. Mantoloking now shows $1,969,772, with a $149,133 increase in a year, an 8.2% move. Seagirt's $2 million plus typical wraps a 5-year surge of $1,012,689. A powerhouse, 78.4% up since the early pandemic shift, turned second homes into primary addresses. In this kind of market, professionals who can thread the needle are in demand. Luxury teams with data-focused strategies have pushed stubborn listings over the line, including a sale that closed more than $250,000 above a prior list price after fresh positioning. Teams with top 1% sales volume by MLS have chalked up more than $600 million in closed transactions, representing 7 of the 10 most expensive residential sales on the North Jersey MLS across 2024 and 2025. Builders are using technology to compress timelines too. One Franklin Lakes-based group has built a proprietary software platform that uses advanced data analytics to identify high-potential property acquisitions and predict sale probability, then automates project management, budgeting, and scheduling. With that approach, timelines that normally drag at 12 months can fall to 7. Their pipeline exceeds 100 million in projects. On the ground, experienced agents in the Gold Coast corridor are blending AI-driven insights and virtual staging to optimize presentation, with results that include an above-list offer in just 24 days on a Cliffside Park condo. Others serve wide price bands, from $70,000 starter condos to 7-figure estates over $1 million, because in New Jersey, the definition of entry-level changes every 20 miles. Still, affordability is the thread you can't ignore. Advocates describe a chasm between incomes and monthly payments. Credit-worthy buyers, even with down payment assistance, sometimes cannot buy in the communities where they work. And risk lurks in financing. If a mortgage that feels affordable at closing ratchets higher later, families can find themselves in a vice. That's where consumer protection and loan structure become pivotal. Meanwhile, calls to make the development process more efficient grow louder. A slow, inefficient system doesn't just frustrate developers. It raises costs for everyone, from the crews pouring foundations to the families trying to buy. There's also the calendar. Municipalities that submitted affordable housing plans are facing a March-April window to take the next affirmative step, implementing the zoning needed to support those plans. Expect late winter and early spring to load up planning board agendas. That matters beyond the housing mandates. Boards have only so many meetings, engineers, and hours to go around. If they are consumed by zoning work for affordable housing, they cannot work on other site plans, commercial retrofits, medical centers, or small multifamily infill. The bottleneck could ripple through approvals this spring and slow other sectors for a quarter or more. On the policy ledger, state leadership faces difficult budget math of its own. Do you raise taxes to cover increased costs and disappoint residents and businesses, or do you cut programs and disappoint those who rely on them? In a state where property taxes already weigh heavily and affordability is the central challenge, neither choice is elegant. The question is, which adjustments will most effectively open pathways for more homes, especially those not built solely for the top end of the market? The paradox is this: New Jersey's value proposition remains stubbornly strong. North to south, towns offer safe streets, strong schools, and commutes that get people to New York or Philadelphia in a single ride. That's why, even as financing costs climbed and inventories thinned, buyer interest didn't vanish. In 2200, demand held steady, and as rates ticked down from their peak, more of the homeowners, anchored by their 4% loans, may be willing to trade for a new address and refinance later. So, what happens next? Base case, 2026 looks steady. Not a surge, not a slide. Steady. Expect the statewide median to hold firm off its $525,000 footing, with local swings defined by inventory pulses and microeconomies. In the high-demand zip codes, places like Westfield at $1,226,968, Ridgewood at $1,161,944 with a 12-month rise of $82,214, or South Orange at just over $1 million. Scarcity will keep prices sticky. Along the coast, Seagirt at $2,304,930 and Spring Lake at $1,355,030 night-style demand stays intact even if price growth cools from double digits to high single digits. In Hudson County micro markets like Secaucus, where January closings ranged from $535,000 to $1,120,000 in a span of 23 days, entry-level pressure will keep two-bed condos competitive and small single families in multiple offer territory. Commercially, look for more mixed-use transformations in middling retail centers and for healthcare facilities to keep outpacing other categories on approvals. In Jersey City, expect the FIRE sector to continue anchoring leasing activity, building on that 63% share from 2002 to 2000. And with a 7.5% population increase from 2020 to 2024 and 1,300 acres of parkland in its binder, the city remains one of the few places where developers will push forward despite headwinds. Keep two watch items pinned to the wall. First, the March-April zoning implementation for affordable housing. If boards move briskly and municipalities embrace creative density where it fits, production could improve at the margin. If the process drags or triggers new resistance, expect another year of scarcity at the attainably priced end, with consequent upward pressure on rents and for sale prices in the mid-tier. Second, the triangle of interest rates, tariffs, and construction costs. Uncertainty over tariffs has already filtered into materials pricing and operating costs. Layer that onto borrowing costs that could prevent rates from falling much further, and margins for small and mid-sized developers stay razor thin. If rates drift lower and price pressures ease, you'll see stalled projects flicker back to life. If they don't, expect more of the same. The big players waiting out the cycle, the small ones boxed out, and buyers chasing a short deck of listings. For all the complexity, the core remains familiar. New Jersey's pull is proximity and quality of life, and those are hard to replicate. Homes sell for $800,000 in Secaucus on January 30th because the train is near and the schools are set. Towns like Palisades Park at $961,033, up $74,981 in a year, 8.5%, compete not just on price, but on culture and commute. Florham Park at $996,992, with a 12-month increase of $74,754, up 8.1%. Glen Rock at $1,011,530, up $70,541 in a year, 7.5%. Montclair at $1,102,512, up $68,186, or 6.6%. These towns make choices easy for people who can pay and hard for people who want to, but cannot yet. The path forward demands a finer balance. Approvals need to move faster without sacrificing prudence. Zoning should open avenues for missing middle housing, duplexes, small multifamily, not just towers. Financing tools, whether modernized tax agreements or targeted incentives, could help the 5-unit, 10-unit, 12-unit builders lift off. As a rising share of projects pivot to healthcare and mixed-use retrofits, That balance gets easier to defend to neighbors who don't want sprawl but also don't want empty asphalt. And as professionals sharpen their tools, analytics that identify the right buyer, software that compresses build timelines from 12 months to 7 market friction can ease at the edges. New Jersey won't become cheap. That's not what the numbers say. When a place like Rumson shows a typical home value of $2,126,098 and still posts a one-year increase of $115,538, up 5.7%, you're not building a new low-cost frontier. When Short Hills holds a typical of $2,258,188, or Franklin Lakes posts a one-year jump of 11.6% to $1,517,266, the baseline is clear. But steady doesn't mean static. It means the lines of buyers remain, the projects that pencil still happen, and the stubborn gaps are where attention belongs. It means a Secaucus townhouse closes for $800,000 on January 30th, a waterfront condo pulls $970,000 on January 12th, and someone in Cliffside Park gets an above-list offer in 24 days because presentation and timing still win. The stakes aren't abstract. Every stalled approval on an outdated strip mall in Mount Arlington is a night where the lights go off early. Every redevelopment agreement signed in Voorhees is a step toward turning a dead corridor into a community place. Every planning board that fights through the March-April zoning workload creates space for someone to rent, buy, or open a storefront by fall. And every buyer who edges into a $535,000 condo at 74 Harbor Key on January 9th is a person who chose to live here because the river path and marina view are worth the stretch. Look past the headlines and the arc is visible. A state with enduring pull, weathering a higher cost cycle, and feeling its way toward more livable density. Demand held steady into 2025. The median climbed to $525,000 last year, up 5.4%. Neighborhoods from Demarest to Spring Lake chalked double-digit one-year moves, while shore towns stacked 5-year gains past $500,000. It's possible to be both resilient and unaffordable at once. That's New Jersey's current paradox. Over the next 12 months, watch the planning calendars and the price of capital. If municipalities clear their zoning commitments by April and rates drift lower through summer, expect more for sale signs to pop and more cranes to edge back into view. If not, expect another year that looks a lot like this. One tight, expensive, creative at the margins, and defined by the buyers who refuse to give up on a state that keeps proving its value. Stay with me for more grounded breakdowns of New Jersey's housing crosswinds, and share this with someone chasing clarity in a noisy market.